What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom just a couple of months away now, there's a lot of excitement and anticipation that's building online, but based on a new discovery, seems to be a bit of controversy added to the mix, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about that Pokemon Presents stream that happened yesterday that didn't go over the best online, and we'll also be talking about Xbox. Now, Phil Spencer had to answer the question of, will Xbox still be a thing in a year or two? Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to start today with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I wanted to separate this from the overall Pokemon Presents stuff because it has to do with, well, the patch that released, that's version 1.2.0, and there have been a lot of talk around performance of these games and a lot of hopes that some of these patches would work to fix and correct bugs, glitches, frame rate issues, a lot, actually. Well, we had previously seen the patch notes, and there were still hopes that when it comes out, it would address something with performance, and unfortunately, you can see kind of the patch notes and all this here on the page. It hasn't fixed anything with performance. Now, it doesn't necessarily list anything with that, other than there was an issue when it comes to crashing or the game force closing, and they had to essentially remove NPCs, Pokemon, other things in basically the overworld, so that I guess it would continue to run correctly, but after people started loading it up, they noticed that there was no discernible difference when it comes to performance. So now it's onward to the next patch, and then probably the next patch after that. I'm hoping that this thing is at least in acceptable condition by the end of this year, but with the Pokemon Company and some of their history, that might be pushing things a bit. Also, we did have a pretty big sale for the Nintendo Switch, and we're going to take a look at their sales and deals page very quickly here, where we have the Aspire and Friends sale. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff that they have on sale, which also includes the Heritage Pack. Kind of cool as it has Pod Racer, Public Commando, Jedi Outcast, all in there for $30, World War Z for $26, even Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 at $15. But the one that I noticed that people seem pretty excited for, because it's a fairly substantial discount. Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is 70% off, going from $60 all the way down to $18. This is under the WB sale that is ongoing. Oh, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, that's also seen a pretty big discount down to $12, and I have to throw it out here to Lego City Undercover. Actually, a surprisingly good game. That one at $6. You also have several Lego titles that are on sale, like Lego Jurassic World at $8, Lego Harry Potter Collection at $10, Superheroes $20, and Marvel Superheroes 2 Deluxe Edition at $9. But clearly, you see Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga. I figured I'd at least bring it up here since it is marked down so heavily. Oh, and it looks like Trinity Trigger will indeed be making its way to Western audiences this year. There was an announcement from Xseed and Marvelous that we can look forward to this title May 16th. There was an entire trailer that also went out here, and this one in particular has been on the radar of a bunch of JRPG fans, kind of because of, I guess, some of the lineage behind this title. You have developers and producers and stuff from Secret of Mana, Xenoblade, Octopath Traveler, to name a few, but it's an action role-playing game, and they're kind of targeting the look and feel of, they say, iconic RPGs of the 90s, fast-paced, customizable combat. And I have seen people talk about this game, but it's been basically in Japan this whole time since September of last year. Now, though, looking towards May, we'll see it getting released. So it's good to see that we will have that game localized outside of Japan. Just got to look forward to it in May, right around the time of Tears of the Kingdom. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. And we'll start right away with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Fast approaching, by the way. Getting closer and closer to May. A lot of excitement, a lot of anticipation, a lot of hope for some sort of treehouse or just overall direct geared specifically towards this game, which, based on titles that we've seen Nintendo do it with in the past, I have to assume there will be some big quote-unquote Zelda blowout with all kinds of information, a special edition system, and maybe even a battle pass of some kind, some sort of downloadable content that be revealed, because based on the store listing, well, we can see this posted up. This was by HMK, who noticed underneath of some of the fine print for the Tears of the Kingdom store page, it highlighted with 2 stars. full version of game required to use DLC sold separately. So this has then led to speculation that, okay, there would be some kind of downloadable content or just additional content that you would buy on top of, yes, the now $70 game. And you can kind of see that there's been a lot of controversy around this now after it's come out, with people going back and forth on the idea of downloadable content for a game that's already seen a $10 increase over what we believe to be the roof for Switch titles from Nintendo, at least, well, for this generation, at $60. And then the idea of announcing downloadable content and some sort of expansion pack or pass or something before the game releases, which, for that, I say, where have you been? Nintendo's been doing this whole time. And I don't know if it's just gone unnoticed, but like a lot of games from Nintendo, they announce the DLC and at times even let you pre-order the downloadable content through an expansion pack ahead of the launch of the game. And this is something that a lot of companies, gamers would jump on them very, very quickly for doing this, but Nintendo, it's kind of a trend for them now. In fact, most of their big titles, I just expect them to announce downloadable content in way of a season pass of some kind before the game comes out. So yeah, I was expecting it for Tears of the Kingdom, which is strange because according to like the Zelda team and Aonuma, a lot of the stuff going into Tears of the Kingdom kind of started as new ideas for DLC for Breath of the Wild and just got so massive that they kind of spun it off into its own game. So now we have DLC that just became too large, then getting its own form of DLC. Now, I think the obvious thing is here we don't have all the information available to us. We barely know what the game is necessarily. I mean, we have an idea as to some of the layers to it with the in the sky, we'll have, I'm sure, kind of an overworld, and then on the ground level, maybe underground, but a lot of the mechanics, the story elements to it, the characters, potential co-op, it's a lot of questions still surrounding this game, and we're also now talking about downloadable content, so really, we just need to get to whatever direct Nintendo hopefully has planned for this game so they can tell us all about it, like I said, the special edition system, and probably an expansion pack of some kind, and then the internet can complain all about it at that point. So let's at least get there first, and then we'll evaluate what we have. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and Phil Spencer having to answer a kind of an odd question, maybe an extreme case scenario for if that acquisition doesn't go through with Activision Blizzard, and they're up against it right now with regulators, the CMA, EU, and the FTC. But we can see this posted up by VGC, and this was from the Times talking to Phil Spencer, mostly around the deal that they're trying to accomplish here with Activision Blizzard and Call of Duty being at the center of it. But he was asked, this is a very, very important acquisition, right? What if it's blocked? Does that mean that Xbox could potentially go away? This is an important acquisition for us. It's not some linchpin to the long term. Xbox will exist if this deal doesn't go through. Now, there was a lot of chatter online around the idea of Microsoft selling Xbox completely, just kind of getting out of gaming. And I think this was from Andy Robinson over at VGC. And the idea being, if this deal doesn't go through, it'll be such a massive gut punch to Xbox and Microsoft that they'll just say, you know what, we're done with this, we're moving on, we're spinning off and selling off all these portions of the Xbox brand, and we're stepping away from gaming completely. But there's several issues with this whole thing. One, I think Microsoft's just in too deep right now to just all of a sudden walk away from gaming. They've purchased many studios, that's not including Activision Blizzard. And then also, you have to find a buyer for Xbox. So to me, if it doesn't go through this deal, one, Activision will probably be in a pretty bad place, even though Microsoft, I believe, has to write a check for $2 to $3 billion just kind of as for taking up their time. But you'll have, I'm sure, a lot of issues in the stock market with investors, a lot of confidence missing there after that deal doesn't go through, or them just being there for the acquisition. And then you wonder about Activision's future relationship with PlayStation being heavily strained after all of this going down. Really, I just think Microsoft would kind of reevaluate their acquisition process and potential targets at that point. Maybe they go for studios closer in size to what Sony has done with something like Bungie. Maybe that's closer to their roof, because while the ZeniMax deal did go through, it certainly caught the eye of regulators for if Microsoft tries to go a bit bigger than that. So maybe they pull it back a little and look around, grab certain affinity and others. But essentially, no, I don't think if this deal, say, stalls or just doesn't go through or Microsoft walks away, that they'll be done with gaming. There's just too much at stake for them now, with the entirety of Xbox being tied into the subscription service with Game Pass, and even those numbers being tied to bonuses for higher-ups like Satya Nadella. So not necessarily the linchpin as Phil Spencer is saying here, but it's still very important that it goes through, and that's the big question on everyone's mind now, which we should find out here in a couple of months one way or the other. Next up, let's talk about Beyond Good and Evil 2. We have a bit of an update. I just wanted to touch on this very quickly because, to be honest, I don't really think this game's actually going to see the light of day, especially not anytime soon, when you see headlines like this. This posted up over on Twitter from Ethan saying, "New managing director is out at the Ubisoft studio behind Beyond Good and Evil 2 as it faces a labor inspection for developer burnout. The beleaguered project is once again undergoing changes, including new game and creative directors." So there you have it. That's your Beyond Good and Evil 2 update. We really haven't had any good updates at all around this game, other than at one point Ubisoft saying, hey, it's still alive. I guess that's the one good piece of news for it, is it's still alive. Although this is a company that's, even though it seems like they've been kind of forced because of money they've taken from a country, I mean, Skull and Bones will eventually come out, so maybe there is hope for Beyond Good and Evil 2, but wow, it's just been, I mean, gut punch after gut punch after gut punch for this game. Remember, it was so long ago this game was announced, and we're still talking about creative directors and stuff playing musical chairs just to get this game set up, and I'm not even kidding, for actual production. We're still not even at that phase yet, so maybe this will indeed be a PlayStation 6 and an Xbox Series XX or whatever system there, which is funny because when it was first announced, we kind of joked that it would end up being a PS5 and Xbox Series game, so why not? PS6, here we come. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Pokemon Presents live stream that took place yesterday morning. A lot of expectations, a lot of hopes going into this presentation, and unfortunately seemed to underdeliver on basically all of that. We'll start from the top though. I did go through, take notes, and really just try to summarize everything that was there. Starting at the top with Pokemon World Championships. It is happening in 2023 and it'll be held for the first time in Japan. This before Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the trading card game, Pokemon Go. They showed off the key art there. Then they showed Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic. I mean, they showed a lot of the original cards with Venusaur, Charizard, Blastoise. They say this is a premium TCG set. I'm not 100% sure on what that means exactly. Maybe some Pokemon Trading Card Game veterans can let me know down in the comments. Is this one that's just going to be more expensive, a high-end set that you have to pay more money for? Either way, a sneak peek will happen during those Pokemon World Championships. A new Netflix Pokemon series is Pokemon Concierge. It's a stop-motion animation, so it does look very, very unique, and it appears to be about a resort that Pokemon, I guess, are visiting on vacation or something there. Then they had an update for Pokemon Unite. This has Zacian being added. There's a new event, Boss Rush, all this. Then Pokemon Cafe Remix. The Paldea starters are being added. So Sprigatito, Quaxley, Fuecoco. And there's a new outfit there for Greninja. Pokemon Masters EX, there's new champions coming to the game. And we did get Pokemon Sleep. We talked about how the URL was updated. It seemed to be redirecting to the Pokemon Presents page. And, well, it was there. Coming out summer 2023. It measures your sleep. So basically, they are now tapping into, as we'd expect, kind of the sleep monitoring or sleep health sector. And the idea is, as you sleep, depending on how you sleep, Pokemon will gather at your island that are also sleeping. So there you go. This is coming to iOS and Android. Sure, hey, it's something that really everyone can play because you would have to sleep to play it. You just have to, I guess, leave your phone or the Pokemon Go Plus Plus on your bed. That's right. That's the name they came up with. Plus Plus. It's used for Pokemon Go and Sleep. Spin Pokestops. You can throw Pokeballs and all this from your pocket. And they have new functions that will use your sleep data. July 14th, 2023. I believe the retail price on that is $55. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We have a new Paradox Pokemon, new Terra Raid battle events, Pokemon Go Connection. That actually happened yesterday, so it is now out. And then home support is coming early 2023. And then they finished up with their big announcement. That is the downloadable content that will be coming to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Hidden Treasure of Area Zero. And this is DLC that's going to be $35. That seemed to catch some people off guard because I believe that's $5 more than downloadable content we had for the previous Pokemon games. They have part 1, that's fall 2023, the Teal Mask, and then part 2, winter 2023, that's the Indigo Disc. But overall, looking at the event, not a lot of big new announcements really at all. Barely anything when it comes to games for the Switch. It was a lot of updates for cell phone games and even a new app for Pokemon Sleep. But they didn't really show up with anything massive or that memorable overall when it comes to video games, which leads us into our poll question as to what everyone thought of it, which we can see here. I asked if the Pokemon Presents a grade. Okay, 4% said A. Hey, you know what? I think if you're a big Pokemon fan, you probably looked at that and said, you know, that was a fun time. But you can also see the 45% of people saying F, 24% C, 20% D, 8% B. Yeah, so it's mostly C through F, and yeah, I get it, because I came out of that going, well, there really wasn't that much there that I was that interested in. Downloadable content, but to be honest, I was hoping they would have had Scarlet and Violet at least somewhat repaired by the time they were talking about getting more money from people, but nope, the games still don't run well at all. And I did finish Pokemon Violet, but I haven't had the feeling to go back to it. Like, oh, I have to go back and just do more of that post-game content. I can't wait for DLC to come out because, to be honest, especially towards the end, it became kind of a slog to get through. It became more and more obvious that the Switch was just struggling with a lot of stuff in that game. And yeah, I understand a lot of it's the optimization and the development side with Game Freak, but you figure they would want to get things worked out a bit more before they talk about the $35 downloadable content. But here we are. Here's hoping in the next patch that, well, if it's February now, at the end of that, we got it. Maybe in May at some point, we see something about performance, frame rate, visuals, bugs, anything like that. So I guess we'll find out in a couple of months. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Base saying, if Konami brings back Metal Gear Solid, how would they integrate the fourth wall breaking mechanics? I remember that boss fight with Mantis where you had to disconnect the controller from slot 1 and connect it back on slot 2, so he couldn't read your mind, which would enable you to attack him. That was a mind-blowing game mechanic that I'm proud to say I witnessed firsthand. I remember it made me physically react. It made me feel 100% immersed in the game. It was awesome. I hope whatever they do, they keep this mechanic intact so that the newer generations experience that. So they have had to play around with that with the first Metal Gear Solid, but with the HD collection, Metal Gear Solid 1 was not there. They just had 2 and 3. They did some weird stuff with the 360 controller for the pressure sensitive buttons, but I do know with the first Metal Gear Solid, they had a PC version of it. In order to make that work, because there's no controller necessarily to plug in, or there's no controller slot 2, what they did was, if you had a controller you were using when you're going through it, and you go up to the Psycho Mantis fight, you had to use the keyboard. So you had to put your controller down, then go to the keyboard for that fight, and all of a sudden he couldn't read your movements. You can still beat Psycho Mantis, by the way, without changing controller slot 2. From what I remember, you just used like the FAMAS or something, and you'll hit him with a couple of bullets. It just takes a long time, but you can do it. That is one of the big things, though, they would have to figure out. Backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 3. You would go into the menu, you'd press the PlayStation button, then just change the controller from slot 1 to 2 in like the menu. So you were able to do it. It wasn't as fun as, oh, I have to unplug this controller and plug it in here. Or when you were asked to call Meryl and they're like, look on the back of the box, look on the back of the package. And I'm like, what is he talking about? It's on the back of your game. Like the back cover art has Meryl's like codec frequency. That was another mind-blowing moment. So I would like to see them be able to figure all of that out. Maybe that's what they're doing now, but at the very least, I hope they're able to get all these different games, the original Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, on current platforms, because there's an entire generation of new gamers that really need to experience these classics. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom DLC maybe coming here soon? Does that surprise you, or was it something you were expecting from Nintendo? And then also, what about Xbox and them potentially folding if this Activision Blizzard deal doesn't go through? Does this sound like something Microsoft would actually do after buying ZeniMax for, what, $7.5 billion? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.